There's no place like home. Home is where the heart is. Home, where feet may leave, but hearts never do. Today, I am sharing some of the books that feel like home to me. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome back to my reading life, and welcome to a video all about the books that make me feel like I'm coming home. And of course, the book that prompted the idea for this video is Coming Home by Rosamund Pilcher. I just started thinking about home and what home means and what home means to me personally. And there's a quote in Coming Home that I'm going to read to you very quickly that I think epitomizes exactly what I think of when I think of home. And there was the other dream, also long forgotten and put out of mind, but all at once suddenly poignant and very real again, that one day he would come to a house, a place never visited before, and there, instantly, utterly, would know that he belonged. Not a bolt hole, but a corner of the world where one could put down roots, returned to, knowing that it would always be there, unchanged, making no demands, comfortable and comforting as an old pair of shoes, one's own. I think that perfectly sums up what home is to me. It is just a place that feels like you belong there. And as I was thinking about that, I thought I have so many books that I've read throughout my life that make me feel that way. That when I opened the cover for the very first time and read the first few lines, I thought, yes, this is my kind of book. And I could just settle in and enjoy myself, and knowing that no matter what happened between the covers of that book, it was going to feel like home to me. That might be a little esoteric. It might be a little, I can't quite put my fingers on it, but it's one of those things when you find it, you know you found it. And I thought I would share some of the books. These are not all of the books that feel like home to me. I probably could have done 2, 3, 4 times more books that I'm going to share in this video today. And I wanted to share some books that I don't talk about that much or I haven't talked about in a while. And so you're not going to see the books that are favorites that I know so many of you love. Things like All Creatures Great and Small, Rosamund Pilcher, Misread, because of course those books are so comforting and they absolutely feel like home. But let me share with you some other books. Some books maybe you haven't heard of or haven't thought of in a while, and maybe they will make you feel like you're coming home when you read them too. Grab yourself a cuppa and let's get into all of the homey books today. First up, I'm going to start with a beloved series from my childhood. These books made such a big impression on me. I read them all when I was very young, and I have now come back to them as an adult, and I find them just as charming, and they take me right back to how they made me feel when I was young, and they were so comforting and endearing and lovely. And those are the Betsy-Tacy books by Maud Hart Lovelace. This is a bind up of the first 4 books in the Betsy-Tacy series, which are Betsy-Tacy, Betsy-Tacy and Tib, Betsy and Tacy Go Over the Big Hill, and Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown. There are 6 more books in the Betsy-Tacy series which follow them as they grow up. And this is such a wonderful series because it really does grow with you. So the earlier books in the series are written in a much simpler way. They're geared towards readers that are the same age as Betsy and Tacy are in the books. And then it grows with them. The writing gets more complex and more intricate and more adult in its theme, though they're not adult books by any means, but they really do grow with you. And these are just so lovely. They're set in the Midwest of America, and they just feature small town life and young girls, friendship, young love, family, all of the experiences that you have growing up. And I just think these are absolutely wonderful. If you've never read them before, I highly recommend them. I think they are wonderful for children and adults alike. And if you have a young child in your life, I definitely recommend gifting them these books. They're absolutely life-changing. Next up are a series of 4 books that I just absolutely love. They are epistolary, they are funny, they are homey, they are quintessentially British, and if you've never read them before, I highly recommend them, and that is The Diary of a Provincial Lady by E.M. Delafield. If you are interested in British women's fiction from around the interwar period up until about the 1950s or 60s, I definitely think The Diary of a Provincial Lady is essential reading. It very much evokes what those books are like, and this is a bind up of all 4 books, so you can just start with The Diary of a Provincial Lady, which is the first book in the series. I think E.M. Delafield has such a wonderful tone in these books, and our provincial lady, who is never given a first name, it's all told from her point of view, and so you don't ever learn her name, but she is so funny and witty and self-deprecating. She's not the best housekeeper. She's not always good at being a housewife and mother, and she makes mistakes just like we all do, gets herself into situations and has to get herself out of them again. But it's so domestic and just kind of that day-to-day slice of life type of story. And this is a book I will return to again and again, and one I think I can kind of just like dip in and out of when I just need a little pick-me-up, because this book will absolutely do the trick if that is what you are in need of. But yes, as soon as I started this, I knew I was going to love it. And I slow read it over quite a few months, and it was so enjoyable, and I was so sad when I closed the last page. And if you've never read it, I highly, highly recommend that you give it a try. Apparently, series are the name of the game when it comes to books that make me feel like I'm coming home, because the next books I'm going to talk about are also a series. I've actually only read the first 2 books so far. It is another series of 4, and I have here in physical form the second book in the series because book 1 is very hard to find here in the US. And the second book is Mrs. Tim Carries On by D.E. Stevenson. Now, the first book in this series, Mrs. Tim of the Regiment, it's difficult to find it in physical book format here in the United States. I believe there is some sort of copyright publishing rights issue, and it hasn't been reprinted here in the US. You can find ebook versions of it and audiobooks, which is how I listened to it when I read the first book and loved it. And the second, third, and fourth books have all been republished by Dean Street Press, which is the edition I am showing to you here. Mrs. Tim is very similar to The Diary of a Provincial Lady. Again, you are reading Mrs. Tim's diaries, and she is the wife of, I think he's a naval officer, whichever it is. Her husband is in the armed services, and so they move around a lot because they follow him where he goes on, in his different deployments and things. And Mrs. Tim Carries On takes us right up into the beginning of World War II. And so we're kind of following along as things start to get going. And Mrs. Tim, again, she's quite funny, quite witty, very self-deprecating, and I just love the tone of these books. If you're new to D.E. Stevenson, this is a wonderful place to start. Many, many people recommend these as the first D.E. Stevenson books you should read, and I would go along with that for sure. They will give you a good flavor for what her writing is like, and I think all of her books really feel like home, but this series is one that is at the top of my list. And she's an author who's going to show up again in this video, so stay tuned till the end. But I highly recommend these. I cannot wait to get to books 3 and 4. They're just pure comfort and delight. They're like a warm cuppa. Next up, I have 2 books that are both middle grade books. They are both sequels, and they both absolutely make me feel like I'm coming home when I open them up. And the first book that I'm going to talk about is Family Sabbatical by Carol Ryrie Brink. And this is the sequel to Family Grandstand, which I enjoyed, but I didn't love it nearly as much as I loved Family Sabbatical. This little duology follows the Ridgway family in Family Grandstand. We get to know them. The father's a professor. They live in a college town. And each chapter is really just a little vignette of their lives. Their mother writes, I believe she writes mystery novels. The house that they live in is kind of right on the street leading up to the college. So there's lots of parades for the football team and different things happening. And so it very much sort of revolves around college town life and what it's like for the Ridgway children. There are 3 of them. To grow up in this small town, and it's very lovely and charming, and I highly recommend it. But Family Sabbatical finds the family off to Europe, to France specifically. And what I loved about this book was a few things. First, it was fun to watch the children try to sort of assimilate into a culture very different from the one that they were accustomed to. It was really fun to watch them celebrate holidays, particularly American holidays, in a foreign country like Thanksgiving, which is obviously not celebrated in France. And it's just so charming to see how they make that happen for their family. And I think this is really a wonderful book that can show both children and adults that home isn't necessarily a place. Sometimes home is the people that you're with. So the family unit and Family Sabbatical is so lovely and strong, and I really, really appreciated that. And this is just such a charming book. I highly, highly recommend it. And I actually think this makes a perfect read at the end of the year. So if you're looking for something around Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, definitely think about Family Sabbatical. I know this cover doesn't look like it's very holiday centric, but it follows an entire year. And so it ends with those holidays at the end of the year. And I think it makes for perfect reading in sort of the autumn into winter months. So if you're looking for something later this year to read, definitely give Family Sabbatical a try. And my second middle grade book, that is the sequel to a little duology, is one that I was not expecting to love as much as I did. Now, I very much enjoyed the first book in the duology, but this second book just spoke to my heart. And that book is Return to Gone Away by Elizabeth Enright. And this is the sequel to Gone Away Lake. And what I loved about this is the cozy domesticity of coming to an old dilapidated house and opening it back up, cleaning it out, setting it up, and making it feel like a home for the family that's moving into it. And there's so much lovely domestic detail in this, and that is what I absolutely loved about this book. As a child, I think playing house and setting up house in particular was one of the things I really loved to do when I played with dolls and Barbies and all of those things. My favorite thing to do would be to set up their homes for them and get that all situated. And then I would often lose interest in actually then playing with the dolls themselves. But setting everything up, that's what drew me in. And that's what drew me into this book. And it completely took me back to my childhood in that respect, and that same feeling of just loving kind of setting things up and organizing everything and finding a place for everything. So if that is something you also enjoy in a book or just in your life in general, then I definitely recommend reading this book. Though you really should read Gone Away Lake first, because that sets up all of the characters in Return to Gone Away. And I think you'll appreciate their relationships more if you get to know them in the first book. But this is a lovely little duology, and this one's my favorite. Next up is another book that, like the Return to Gone Away, features sort of the finding and setting up of a house, and that is The Semi-Detached House by Emily Eden. Now, this isn't a bind-up with The Semi-Attached Couple, but these two books, they don't have anything to do with one another, really. I think maybe there might be some sort of loose connection familially, but the stories have nothing to do with one another. So you can absolutely read The Semi-Detached House without reading The Semi-Attached Couple. We read The Semi-Attached Couple for the Cozy Reader Book Club, and I enjoyed it. It had its ups and downs. It was slow going in parts. And then I just decided I wanted to continue on and read the Semi-Detached House because I enjoyed the Semi-Attached Couple enough. And I was completely drawn into the Semi-Detached House from the get-go. And it is so fun. We are following Blanche and her Aunt Sarah. They are first off looking for a home because Blanche's husband is been sent off on some mission. I think he's in the British government or military. He's going to be gone for, I think, about 3 months. And so they need to find a place to live. And so they find this semi-detached house, which, sort of, it's only semi-detached. So it is very close to the neighbors, and so you get the relationships with the neighbors and just kind of all the ins and outs of the people they get to meet that live near where they're staying, and they have friends come to stay and visit, and you just kind of follow along with this very charming, funny, just light story. If you enjoy Jane Austen and her comedy of manners, definitely give the Semi-Detached House a read because it's very much got that feel to it. Her writing style is different than Austen's, but and maybe a little bit easier to get into if you struggle with Austen a bit. I would definitely give Emily Eden a try. I really found the Semi-Detached House so incredibly readable and just lovely and charming. And I mean, house is in the title, so how could this not make me feel like coming home? Next up is a book by one of my very favorite authors, and it was so hard for me to choose which of the 3 books of hers that I've read so far I wanted to include in this video, but I picked one. I want to read everything she wrote, and actually we're reading one of her books in the Cozy Reader Book Club later this year. But the book of hers I want to share with all of you today is Dear Hugo by Molly Clavering. Now, again, this is an epistolary novel. You know how I love a good epistolary novel. And in this one, we're following Sarah Monteith, and she has moved to the village of Ravenskirk. But she hasn't told any of her neighbors her reason for moving there, which is the fact that her lost love, who was killed in the war, he and his brother, the Hugo of the title, both were raised in this village, and so she has gone there to feel closer to Ivo, who had been tragically killed. And so she is writing to his brother Hugo and telling all about her life in Ravenskirk, and it's full of just village life and all of the sort of quirky personalities of everybody living there and how Sarah kind of gets involved in all the village goings on. I love this little quote at the top of the back of the book. It says, "When the time comes for you to retire, Hugo, if you want a quiet life, don't settle down in the country. Bury yourself in London or any really large city and you can live like a hermit, but avoid the outskirts of a village. I am dazed by the ceaseless whirl of activities in which almost everyone in and around Ravenskirk is involved." I really love Sarah. She's got such a wonderful spirit, and she has such compassion for all the people around her, and she really does some wonderful things in this book. Now, I know from other people who have read this that the ending was not for everybody, but I actually really love the ending of this. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I will just say that it's maybe not what you expect. And I will leave it at that. But I think it was actually a really satisfying conclusion for me, and I can't wait to reread this one at some point in the not too distant future. But first up, I have to read all of Molly Clavering's other books first. My next pick is a coming-of-age novel, and one that I feel like is a bit of a hidden gem, and I don't hear it much talked about, and that is The Lost Art of Keeping Secrets by Eva Rice. If you're a fan of coming-of-age novels along the lines of I Capture the Castle and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, then I definitely think you should give The Lost Art of Keeping Secrets a read because it is so lovely and charming. In this, we're following Penelope Wallace, and she and her family live in this crumbling mansion called Magna. So she lives there with her mother and her brother, and they used to have a lot of money, but they don't. Her father, I believe, passed away, and there just isn't any money to kind of keep up the home or really do much of anything. But then Penelope's life changes and kind of opens up when she befriends this young girl named Charlotte Ferris, and she kind of gets swept into Charlotte Ferris's world with her family and her brother, and you just see Penelope kind of grow up during those kind of mid to late teen years, and this is just such a wonderful read. It's incredibly immersive. It is just, I can't say enough good things about it. I reread it again just a couple of years ago, and I'm already thinking I want to reread it yet again. If you want a book to curl up with on a dreary, rainy day, this is the book to curl up with. It will sweep you away and keep you fully immersed from page 1 until you close the cover. It is wonderful. I am glad of this room. It has such a kind feeling. The other rooms are lovely, but they are meant for crowds of people. This says tea and a fire and a book and a friend, the 4 nicest things in the world. If that sounds like your kind of book, then you need to read Penny Plain by O. Douglas. If you're a fan of the likes of Molly Clavering, who I just mentioned, or D.E. Stevenson, Angela Thirkell, any of those authors, then you will love O. Douglas. Penny Plain is the first in the Priorsford trilogy, and in this we are following a young woman, Jean Jardine, and she is in charge of her younger brothers. They have lost their parents, and she was kind of old enough when that happened to keep her brothers with her and raise them, finish raising them, and they live together, and it's quite domestic, and you just kind of follow along with what is going on with them, with their neighbors in the town of Priorsford, and you watch as Jean sort of navigates life. There is a woman who moves in next door and befriends Jean and her family, and really kind of things start to change and open up in Jean's world, and it's just incredibly lovely, incredibly charming. There's a wonderful love story in it that's just very kind of soft and subtle, and I really love that about it. And I'm so excited. I am planning to read the second book in the Priorsford trilogy, which is Pink Sugar, very, very soon, because I'm just in the mood for another O. Douglas. I read Olivia in India last month, so I think I might have to pick up Pink Sugar this month, because I just can't get enough of her writing. So if that sounds good to you, then I definitely think you should give Penny Plain a read. Now, this one is included. I have talked about there is a Kindle edition of 10 O. Douglas books that you can get for a very low price, just a few dollars. I will have it linked in the description box below. So if you want to give her a try, that's a great way to do it. Her books are challenging to find in physical form, but the ebooks are readily available. And I think once you try one, you're just going to want to keep reading her. My next book is a little bit different than quite a few of the other books that I have talked about already, but it's just so fun and light and charming that every time I think of it, it just gives me such a satisfied feeling, and it's really one I need to reread again because it's been quite a few years since I last picked it up, and that is Miss Pedygrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Holtby. And this is the story of Miss Pedygrew. She is a governess, and she is mistakenly sent to a nightclub singer instead of to a family with young children, and so she ends up spending, I believe it's an entire 24 hours with this nightclub singer, and her life just kind of changes overnight, and she just experiences the world in a way she has never experienced it before, and it is a romp is the best way I can describe it. If you like sort of 1940s screwball comedies, this is the book for you because it feels a little bit like that in book format. And there are some lovely kind of tender, poignant moments in this as well. And I can't recommend this one enough. If you saw the movie with Amy Adams, please read the book. I think the movie's charming, but I think the book is just even better. So if you haven't already read this one, I definitely recommend it. My next book is actually two books because I cannot separate these two in my mind, and they are being republished this summer by Dean Street Press, and I have already pre-ordered my copies. I cannot wait. We are going to be reading them with the Cozy Reader Book Club in September, and I haven't been this excited about rereading a book in quite some time. And the books I'm talking about are Belle, Lamington and Fletcher's End by D.E. Stevenson. What can I say about these books? I feel like I gush about them all the time, so these are definitely two on this list that I know I've shared quite a few times already on my channel, but I just can't stop raving about them. I just love Belle Lamington. In Belle Lamington, we are following Belle. She is a London working girl and she has a job in an office, and we kind of follow along. She's a little bit lost, a little bit feels like maybe she's not in the right place for her. And so we just sort of watch and see how things unfold for her. She has a bit of an infatuation with a young man, and maybe things don't go exactly the way she was hoping, and then something else happens that's quite unexpected, but just charming. And even though she's maybe a little bit out of her teen years, it does have a bit of that coming of age feeling to it. And then Fletcher's End. Fletcher's End. I just can't say enough good things about this book. The only thing I'm going to tell you about it, because really to give any kind of plot synopsis is going to spoil Belle Lamington for you, but all I can say is it is so domestic. All that talk I said earlier about books like Return to Gone Away and The Semi-Detached House, Belle Lamington has in spades. It is all about setting up house and sort of the domesticity of like having your first real home. And it's so wonderful. It's just so wonderful. If that isn't an endorsement, I don't know what is, but if you haven't read either of these, this summer is your opportunity to get physical copies of them if you would like. If not, they are available as ebooks right now. I'll have both the link to the pre-order for the physical books and the ebooks down in the description box below, so you can take your pick. But really, don't miss out on these two. They are fabulous. And then my final book in this Books That Feel Like Home to Me video is the only nonfiction book in the bunch. But again, it just has that sort of cozy domesticity, that setting up of your home, of finding your place in the world. And that book is Martha's Vineyard, Isle of Dreams by Susan Branch. And this book, I mean, it's got a little bit of sort of heartbreaking poignancy to it because Susan Branch was going through a divorce from her first husband when she decided to up and move herself from California to Martha's Vineyard all by her lonesome. She'd never been there. She didn't know anyone there. She just decided she needed a change in her life, and that is what she did. And this book just follows along as she just makes a new life for herself and finds a home. This little home right here, this tiny little cottage, was her first home on Martha's Vineyard, and just her setting it up and making it cozy and, you know, doing it herself and finding her art. And it's so lovely. It's full of Susan's just beautiful illustrations and handwriting, along with photographs, and it is just like coming home to read this book. I cannot say enough wonderful things about this book. I think I read that they are going to be republishing this because it's been out of print for a while now and it's been very challenging to find. So I will put the information about its availability down in the description box below. I can't remember if that's happening yet, or it might not be till this fall. So if you're looking for a copy of this book, join Susan Branch's newsletter. I will have a link to her website down below. And yes, get yourself a copy of this if you don't have one. If you see it in the wild somewhere, grab it. Because as of right now, I believe they're still pretty hard to find. But It's such a wonderful book. Check and see if your library has it. That was how I first read it. And then I had to get myself a copy, and it took me a while to track it down, but I finally did. And I'm so glad I have it. And my lovely friend, Melissa from A Duchess Inside, she loves to read this at New Year's. And I think I'm going to do that this year. I think I'm going to read it in early January because it is that kind of sort of starting over, beginning again, fresh start kind of feel to it. And I think that makes for a perfect New Year's read. And that will wrap up the 12 books that feel like home to me. And I would love to chat with you down in the comments below. What are some books that feel like home to you? And do you want to try any of these books that I mentioned today and see if they also feel like home to you as well? Let us chat all things homey books down in the comments below. If you're here but you don't have anything you'd like to add, but you'd like to let me know that you were here, why don't you leave a home emoji in the comments below? I really love seeing those, and they really do help my channel, as do likes and also hypes on the YouTube mobile app. And if you're new here and you haven't yet done so, but you enjoyed this video and want to see more book recommendations, book hauls, book vlogs, book wrap-ups, piles of possibilities, all that good stuff, if you could hit that subscribe button, I would love to have you join my cozy bookish community. Thank you all so much for being here and taking time out of your day to spend it with me. I so appreciate it, and I love seeing all of your comments and reading them, and it really does warm my heart. You all make me feel like I've come home here on this channel, so thank you for that. As always, I'll be back with another video very soon, and until then, I wish you a good book that makes you feel like you're coming home and a warm cuppa. Bye. I have a helper. She's probably here because she wants to be fed because it is almost lunchtime, but not quite, okay? Ivy, you want to help me talk about this final book? You come up here? Come here. Nope, you're gonna get down? Come here. Okay, bye-bye.